Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be making a vibrating tumbler. I've bought a vibrating motor, I've got some trampoline springs and an old gas cylinder. I've got lots of parts to de-rust and using a wire wheel was getting very tiresome, and I saw this idea on the internet somewhere, so I can't take credit for it, but I thought it was a very clever and simple idea. I'm going to start off by cutting off the top and the bottom and cutting out a window. I'm going to save that piece that I cut out and then we'll use that as a lid. Now when cutting gas cylinders, please use some common sense as they can be very dangerous. I'm going to be filling it up with water before I cut it. So I've got it all cleaned up and I've cut the sides off and I've partially cut the lid out. I've left this part uncut. I'm going to first weld this hinge on, and once I've welded the hinge on and some strips here, I'll cut this all the way through and put another strip here so that the lid doesn't fall in and it provides some sort of seal. Unfortunately, this piece is a bit too big for my cold saw, so I had to cut it with a grinder. With the main body finished, it was time to make the frame to hang it in. So this is the top and bottom part of the frame complete. Next here I'm welding on some nuts so that I can hook the springs on and hang the vibrating tumbler from. It's starting to come together quite nicely. Now I just need to make the vertical supports for it. So it's nearly finished. It looks a bit ugly now, so we're going to clean it up, give it a paint, and I'll bring you back for some testing. Well, I've painted it and I've mounted the motor. Unfortunately, it's not quite as good as I thought it was. Firstly, the motor is underpowered. It's 50 watt, and the lid, it rattles too much and it needs some sort of lock. So let me just show you how it is now before I do any improvements. So I need to get a more powerful motor, and I'm going to try and make the lid a little bit differently. Definitely need some sort of lock and maybe a seal because there is dust coming out. So I'm just going to do some improvements and I'll bring you back. So as you just saw, the performance was pretty poor with this small motor. If I was just cleaning nuts and bolts, this was okay. The nuts and bolts were cycling, but the bigger parts were just sitting there. It's just not generating enough vibrating force. So I've gone and bought a much bigger one. This one is 250 watt and this one is 50 watt. So I originally went with this one simply to save on power, but it's obviously not up to the task for this job. So now I'm going to put this one in and we'll see how it goes. So I've completed the modifications. As you can see, I've had to raise the frame because the motor is a lot bigger and it was touching the floor. And I've removed the hinge from the lid, and now the lid is just bolted on, and I've added a seal all around because it was generating quite a bit of dust. So now just undo these. And it just lifts off, and there's a seal all around to keep all the dust from getting into your shop. So I've got a bunch of rusty stuff and some with paint, and we're going to run it and see how it goes. So I've got all these pieces that I need cleaned up. Some of them are rusty and have paint on them, and some of them are just corroded. So I'm going to throw them all in for about 8 hours and we'll see how it cleans them up. So I'm going to let it run for about 8 hours and I'll bring you back and show you the results. I might have to tune the aggregate a bit, use maybe a different medium for what I need, but since garnet is very cheap, I'm going to give that a go first. So it's been in the tumbler for about 8 hours and this is what it looks like after that time. It's like a very dull sandblasted finish. So the garnet media is just probably a very fine abrasive, and this is the type of finish that it leaves. It's removed most of the rust, but some of the deeper rust is still there, I can see there. It's definitely better than sitting there and wire brushing, but it's not as good as I would have expected, as it has left the paint mostly intact. It's removed some of it, but not all of it. So I have to investigate some different media for removing paint, something that's a bit more aggressive. I only used the garnet media since it was very cheap. So if you've got any suggestions on a good cheap media that I can use to remove paint off parts, let me know in the comment section. Anyway, thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.